But once again, going back to the original point, you yourself are part of a family business, and Tharawat Magazine is a family business in itself. So, well, first of all, like, what family members do you work with in the company?
So founded, or let's put it this way, idea pitched by my father.
Yes.
Who I still work with today,
Yes.
every day, dad. And, you know, like with many families, even though my mom is not directly involved in the business, she makes most of the decisions. And we like, or let's put it this way, like we really very much like rely on her judgment in, well, pretty much everything still, I have to say. Like, you know, she's so rarely wrong. Don't tell her I said that. So the second generation is my two sisters and myself. So we have like Frida and Shireen, who are like working as well alongside. We're working alongside each other, and it's been an interesting experience. Being now like officially like, you know, a fully involved second generation. And I think for us it's maybe particularly hard because everyone says like, oh, but you know, you're so great at dispensing advice and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, but like, you know, in all, to be realistic, I think what makes us so credible is that we're not shy about admitting that we're not following the best practice either, always. Like we try, obviously we put an extremely high bar for ourselves because we know that, you know, we want to set a role model in more ways than one, but like it's really hard. You know, we fall into the exact same traps like many of the families we've interviewed in the past, and it's funny to read stuff and to read other people's statements and just recognize yourself in that so fully. I mean, it's sometimes it's funny, haha, and then sometimes it's funny more like making me cry because, you know, it's just what like it sounds all too familiar, basically. So
so you work more or less with your entire immediate family. So what sucks about that? Blatantly put. And I say this always, the same things that are great also suck sometimes. I think because I always say, like, you know, the family business's strength are also its weaknesses. So if you talk about like things like it being a strength that we are all emotionally connected to each other, I think you can easily imagine right now, and I'm sure you sometimes, like as part of the team, you witness it like indirectly. Many times. More than once.
The emotional ties are also sometimes like extremely what holds you back and what like sort of drags you down, or what makes a day or like an interaction extremely difficult. So I think that's one aspect. The other aspect is like, you know, we tend to see it as a weakness of the family business model that we can, like, we're informal. I maintain that yes, that's a weakness, especially when you reach a certain size. You really have to look at structure, but I also think that weakness can be a huge strength, because informality can also reach to, you know, rapid decision making, and we can be more spontaneous. We can take risks without like over analyzing things, which sometimes business should still be a gut business, right? Should be about like how your intuition is like driving you, and then, you know, how we always say, like, you know, just do it fast, fail fast, and then move on or succeed. So there's a few. I'm sure there's like I would be enumerating the classical things, like, you know, you never really grow up in the eyes of your parents. It's very hard to start treating your sisters as professionals as opposed to your like siblings. I see a lot of our like interviewees as well struggling with creating their own identity inside the family business, like, you know, not to forget that you are first of all yourself. You're not just like, I know you come to work and then you're someone's employee, you're someone's daughter, niece, nephew, brother, sister, cousin, whatever, parent, but you're first and foremost yourself. And I think when you work in a collective thinking like the family business, that sometimes tends to go under, and you have to be really careful that doesn't happen, right?
Well, I mean, all in all, is it a overall net positive or negative to be a family business?
Why do you think we're doing this podcast?
I don't know.
It's of course overall positive.
Just be honest. You know, you can say it's a net negative.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, like James is like shamelessly using this podcast right now to ask me questions he would never ask me personally.
Yes. I see an opening here, and I'm just gonna charge right in and throw everything at you.
It's a huge Oprah moment right now here in the studio.
Yes.
No, overall, absolutely positive.
Okay.
Like I actually highly recommend the family business model. Mostly, and I maintain this. I don't think that our generation can emphasize this enough, as in the millennial generation, which I'm also still part of, sort of.
You're an old millennial.
old millennial. To be able to work with people who share your values is not something that is a given, especially in this world. And I think what we've seen after the many crises that are behind us and the many crises that are in front of us is that you spend so much time at work that choose it carefully, like choose your career carefully, and most of all choose who you surround yourself with and who you work with carefully. And if you're lucky enough to have the kind of family that sort of like shares many of the fundamental ethical things that are important to you, then I say why not? Because like, you know, the odds are very high that you'll be happier at work knowing that you're working towards a purpose that you really truly understand and support.
Right.
Now this is an ideal case. I'm very much aware that this is not always the case, and that also many get forced into the family business, which of course is fundamentally wrong. But if you're asking me generally, do I support the idea or would I do it again? In a heartbeat, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you were to do it again, or you look at yourself 7 years ago and knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself and be like, oh, young Ramia, you know, you are also filled with dreams and hopes, but
I said, don't go into publishing, man. What's wrong with you? Okay, I think if I could go back those many years, like you make me sound so old. I think we should put in the podcast description how old I am, just to clarify this for everyone. I'm not that old. Well, you know, depends on perception, I guess. I think if I could go back to the beginning, I would tell myself to take myself seriously as an entrepreneur. So even though I was working with family and for family, and then also had clients that were family businesses, which by the way gives you like this generally extended feeling as if you're always working with people you're related to, because family businesses, we tend to bond extremely quickly, right? Like there's a immediate deep tie, and like, you know, I'm still in touch with well, at least 80% of the people we've like at some point interviewed or like had interactions with, right? So because there was this bond immediately, and there's this beautiful like link through the storytelling aspect. But if I were to go back, I would tell myself to take myself more seriously as an entrepreneur, isolated from the whole like sort of collective thinking, but actually to really tell myself to dedicate a lot of time to teaching myself what it means to be like part of a business, in charge of a business, because I personally feel the education system does fail us in that respect. Like I don't know how you feel like no, I don't know how you feel like it's social critique. Oh my god, it's the wrong podcast. Yes. No, I just don't know how you feel about it, but I know that many other next gen members feel like that when you graduate from university or from whatever school you've done, you're just not ready, and you just, no one has taught you anything that then seems remotely relevant to what expects you as an entrepreneur. And I'm saying that holding a business degree, so I can't even imagine what it's like for people like graduating from like, you know, engineering, whatever. Right. We're taught way too much how to be employees. We're not taught enough how to be entrepreneurs. Now we have a lot of degrees in family business, but I still maintain what it boils down to, and what will make your family business last as well by your joining it, is your entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
It's good to understand what a family business is and why it has its own characteristics, and it's good to be able to go into group therapy basically with other family business members and exchange, like, you know, the common challenges. But ultimately what it comes down to is like, you know, you're either a good entrepreneur and business leader or you're not. And like there, in that respect, being part of a family business or not doesn't really make a difference. Like that's a universal something. So yeah, if I could go back, I would tell myself much earlier to start working on myself as a as a serious entrepreneur that we should be able to do many things
right
down the line.